son of a world-renowned soul singer, was invited to perform at his elite private school, but only as a cruel joke. His voice, however, left the entire room silent. "Let's watch the superstar's kid crash and burn," Blake whispered, his laugh echoing through the auditorium while classmates exchanged knowing smirks. On stage, 16-year-old Marcus Johnson stood alone beneath the spotlights, an island of bright light surrounded by pale, expectant faces. Westmore Academy was the kind of place where last names carried more weight than talent. Students arrived in luxury cars and competed to host the flashiest parties. Marcus was the school's scholarship student, the hard-working boy from Oakland, whose mother, the legendary Vivian Johnson, toured the globe collecting awards. The principal's voice cut through the murmurs. "Microphone's on, Mr. Johnson. Since you chose to enter the talent show, we're eager to hear what you've prepared." Everyone knew Marcus hadn't volunteered. Blake and his friends had forged his name on the sign-up sheet, planning a public humiliation. "Let's see if talent really runs in the family," they'd joked in the hallways. Marcus had never performed for an audience. He avoided any spotlight connected to his mother's fame, not out of embarrassment, but because he was tired of being reduced to just her son. Since arriving at Westmore 6 months earlier, he'd studied relentlessly to prove his worth. Funny how no one remembered his mother's background when they asked for backstage passes. But when they wanted to tease him, they suddenly remembered every difference they could exploit. "Are you backing out?" the principal pressed, fingers tapping impatiently. Phones were already raised, ready to capture a failure that could go viral. "I didn't plan anything," Marcus said quietly. "What a pity," the principal sighed. "But," Marcus added, surprising even himself, "I can improvise." A hush fell over the room. From the front row, music teacher Mrs. Rivera, the only adult who truly knew him, gave a slight, encouraging nod. Just a week earlier, she'd overheard him humming to himself after class and had recognized a rare gift. Marcus took a long breath. 2 choices: walk away defeated or share a side of himself no one at Westmore had ever seen. "I'll sing something my mom wrote," he said evenly, "a piece she never recorded." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even the cruelest students leaned forward. Before the Grammys and sold-out concerts, Vivian Johnson had been a single mother singing lullabies in a tiny Oakland apartment. Marcus had grown up not just listening to her voice, but learning from it. He adjusted the microphone, meeting Blake's mocking eyes with a calm resolve that wiped the grin from the bully's face. "What's the matter, Johnson? Need your mom to sing it for you?" Blake jeered, drawing nervous laughter. Marcus closed his eyes. "This song," he whispered into the mic, "is called Invisible Roots." The first note wavered, then soared, rich, clear, and powerful enough to stop every whisper in the auditorium. The song was a smooth, soulful ballad laced with jazz, a melody that demanded both precision and heart. To everyone's shock, Marcus's voice was extraordinary, deep, warm, and far more powerful than anyone expected from a 16-year-old. In the third row, Blake's confident grin faltered. This was not the humiliation he'd planned. Marcus sang of hidden roots pushing through concrete, of ancestry and quiet strength, of staying whole in a world eager to break you. Each lyric peeled away the labels others had pinned on him. From the front row, Mrs. Rivera felt tears welling. A week earlier, she'd overheard Marcus humming in an empty music room and recognized a rare gift. Not just talent, but the discipline of someone who'd practiced for years. When she'd asked why he kept it secret, he'd shrugged. "I don't want to be known only as the kid singing his mom's songs," he'd said. "I want people to respect me for more than my name or how I look." She had told him then, "To hide your talent is to hide yourself." Now, as his voice filled the auditorium, she knew he finally understood. At the side of the hall, Blake whispered to 2 friends and slipped toward the tech booth. Suddenly, the stage lights flickered. A shrill feedback squeal pierced the air. Marcus missed a note but kept going. Then a jarring electronic beat blasted through the speakers. Sabotage. Some students laughed, thinking it was part of the act. Others whispered, realizing someone was trying to wreck the performance. Marcus didn't flinch. He shifted the melody, weaving the harsh beat into his own rhythm. Years of watching his mother improvise had taught him to turn chaos into music. Blake's triumphant smirk collapsed as the crowd began to sway. Phones rose, flashlight beams dancing like a real concert. The disruption had become the highlight. When the final note faded, 2 heartbeats of stunned silence gave way to a roar of applause, loud, unforced, electric. Thomas, usually Blake's closest ally, was the first to stand. One by one, the entire auditorium followed. Everyone, that is, except Blake, who sat rigid, arms crossed, face tight with frustration. "This isn't over," his glare seemed to say. Backstage, Marcus trembled with leftover adrenaline as Mrs. Rivera approached. "You knew they might try something, didn't you?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Blake bragged about a surprise. That's why I chose that song. My mom wrote it so I could improvise if I had to." "You knew it so well you turned their plan into music," she said, amazed. "They underestimated me," Marcus replied with a half-smile. "They always do." "Is that why you went through with it? To prove a point?" "Not exactly," Marcus admitted. "I wasn't even going to sing. But last night, after I learned about the forged sign-up, I got an email." He hesitated, then continued. "From Berklee College of Music in Boston, a scholarship program for exceptional talent. My mom sent them a recording of me without telling me." The teacher's brows lifted in surprise. "That's one of the top music schools in the country, and they want you for a live audition next week?" Marcus rubbed a hand across his face. "Can you believe my own mom never told me she thought I was good enough?" Mrs. Rivera rested a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes parents see potential we can't see in ourselves." Before Marcus could reply, a group of students burst into the dressing room with excited chatter, congratulations, questions, requests for selfies. Few noticed Blake leaning against the doorway, eyes cold, thumbs flying across his phone. "Enjoy the spotlight," Blake murmured as he finally edged past Marcus. "It won't last." Something in his voice, quiet, confident, sent a chill down Marcus's spine. Whatever Blake planned next was bigger than flickering lights or a sound system prank. That evening, Marcus returned to his dorm to a flood of notifications. Someone had posted a video of his performance to the school's social feed, but it wasn't just the clip, it was the comments. The first, from an anonymous account, read, "Want the truth about Marcus Johnson's so-called talent? Click the link." By morning, Marcus's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Blake's edit of the video was everywhere, a spiteful montage splicing Marcus's song with old concert footage of his mother, Vivian Johnson, implying he was merely copying her and lacked originality. The caption was brutal. "Why does superstar Vivian Johnson hide her son from the stage? Sources claim every label has turned him down. Hashtag pretend talent, hashtag charity case." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He'd faced whispers before, but never an attack this public or this calculated. When he finally answered his mother's call, her voice carried unmistakable fire. "I just saw that nonsense," Vivian said. "I'm on the first flight home." "Mom, no," Marcus protested. "That'll only fuel the drama." Blake would love the attention. Silence, then a calmer reply. "You're right. This is your story to tell, but let me help in other ways." Across the room, his usually quiet roommate, Eli, looked up from his laptop. "My dad's a defamation attorney," he said, "and I know a bit about digital tracking." Marcus blinked. "Since when do you care?" "Since I heard you sing," Eli answered simply. "Some lines shouldn't be crossed." Meanwhile, Mrs. Rivera was working her own angle. As faculty advisor to the student newspaper, she had years of archived student council recordings. She opened a folder on her laptop. "Listen to this," she said. Blake's voice filled the speakers, boasting about manipulating grades, the disciplinary committee, and bullying other scholarship students. A detailed pattern of intimidation, all in his own words. "This," Rivera said, "is pure gold. We just need the right moment." That moment arrived faster than expected. High on the apparent success of his smear campaign, Blake called an emergency student council meeting to discuss artistic integrity in the talent show. Thomas, the same classmate who'd first leapt to applaud Marcus, quietly tipped him off. The auditorium buzzed as administrators and council members gathered. Blake, immaculate in a tailored blazer, exuded confidence. Principal Reynolds watched him with open admiration. "We have evidence," Blake began smoothly, "that certain performers used inappropriate technical tricks to enhance their acts." He let his gaze drift toward Marcus, seated silently at the back. The double doors swung open. It wasn't Vivian Johnson who entered, as everyone, including Marcus, half expected. A tall, middle-aged man in a sharp but understated suit strode down the aisle. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said, his voice carrying the effortless authority of someone used to commanding a recording studio. Richard Torres, multiple Grammy-winning producer and Marcus's godfather, had arrived. Mrs. Rivera invited Richard Torres to discuss a potential partnership with Westmore's music program. Blake blinked, completely wrong-footed. This was not the confrontation he'd imagined. "Mr. Torres!" Principal Reynolds rose at once, recognizing the award-winning producer. "What an unexpected honor." "The honor is mine," Torres said, striding down the center aisle, "especially after watching a certain video that's been circulating. I was impressed by this young man's talent." Principal Reynolds looked puzzled. "Video?" Rivera switched on the projector. Instead of the doctored montage Blake had posted, the screen showed the unedited recording of Marcus's performance, including the flickering lights and the sudden electronic interference. "As a producer who's worked with artists for over 20 years, Torres continued, "I know authentic talent when I hear it, but this impressed me even more." The next slide appeared, security camera footage of Blake and his friends sneaking into the tech booth, clearly tampering with the equipment. "Security cameras," Rivera explained calmly, "installed after last year's vandalism incident." Blake paled. "That's out of context." "Like these messages?" Torres asked as screenshots filled the screen. Blake's own texts planning both the sabotage and the smear campaign. The room went silent. "How?" Blake stammered, searching the principal's face for support. "Thomas decided to clear his conscience," Marcus said evenly. "He gave everything to Eli and Ms. Rivera last night." Principal Reynolds looked as if the years had suddenly caught up with her. "Blake, my office. Now." As Blake left, defeated, Torres turned to Marcus with a warm smile. "So you never told them, did you?" Marcus shook his head, a faint grin forming. "Told us what?" Rivera asked. "That before any of this," Torres said, "Marcus recorded a full album in my studio. It's set for release next month." A ripple of surprise swept through the auditorium. "It's true," Marcus confirmed. "I wanted to be judged on my own merits, not my mother's name or any connections. But now..." He glanced toward the door Blake had just exited. "Now I think it's time for my music to be heard." What Blake intended as a final humiliation had become the public unveiling of a rising artist. By evening, 2 videos dominated social media: Marcus's breathtaking performance and Blake being escorted off campus. The fallout was immediate. By Monday, Westmore Academy had announced a special assembly and a new code of conduct with strict anti-bullying policies. Principal Reynolds faced a formal inquiry for negligence. Outside the school, Blake's once polished future unraveled. Early admissions were rescinded, top universities withdrew offers, and his family faced uncomfortable public scrutiny. His once glossy social profiles vanished under a wave of backlash. Meanwhile, Richard Torres's studio buzzed with excitement. News of Marcus's upcoming album spread quickly, industry insiders eager to hear the voice that had turned an attempted takedown into a triumphant debut. Marcus slipped quietly through a side entrance to avoid reporters. Eli walked beside him, grinning. "How does it feel," he asked, "to be the one who changed Westmore for the better?" Marcus adjusted his backpack, the same determined calm in his eyes. "Feels like I can finally just make music," he said. And with that, the young artist stepped into a future entirely his own, no longer anyone's charity case, No longer only Vivian Johnson's son, but Marcus Johnson, a name the music world would soon know. Marcus sat back in a leather swivel chair, listening to the final mix of his debut album, Invisible Roots. "I always knew you had something special," Richard Torres said, sliding a few knobs on the console. "But whatever happened at that school, it gave your voice a new kind of depth." "Life experience," Marcus replied with a quiet smile. His phone buzzed. A message from his mother. "Vivian. Proud doesn't begin to describe how I feel. I'll be there tomorrow. I love you." Later, she admitted she'd watched the original video of his performance more than 100 times. "I saw you turn hostility into art," she told him when they finally met. "That's what great artists do." When Marcus returned to Westmore Academy a month later, the hallways felt transformed. The sidelong glances and muffled laughter were gone, replaced by cautious respect and even admiration. Thomas, once Blake's ally, now greeted him openly. Other students who had stayed silent before offered genuine words of welcome. The school itself was changing too. Principal Reynolds was replaced by Vice Principal Garcia, who immediately launched new programs focused on inclusion and opportunity. Mrs. Rivera was promoted to head of the arts department. "You know what's ironic?" Marcus said to her during a counseling session. "Blake tried to reduce me to the famous singer's son, but he ended up freeing me from that label forever." The release of Invisible Roots came on a mild spring afternoon. No flashy parties, just an intimate gathering at Torres's studio. Vivian watched proudly as her son spoke briefly to the guests. "This album was born from a need to be seen beyond labels," Marcus said. "When we sing, we aren't defined by family, background, or the past. We're defined by the truth we bring to every note." Critics agreed. Marcus Johnson was no longer simply Vivian Johnson's son, but a true artist with a voice entirely his own. 3 months later, the album earned 2 Grammy nominations, including Best New Artist. In a Rolling Stone interview, Marcus was asked about Blake and the incident at school. His answer surprised the journalist. "I don't thank him for the cruelty. No one should have to face that. But I do thank him for forcing me to confront the fear that kept me from showing my full self. He wanted to put me in my place, and he did, just not the place he imagined." Westmore Academy eventually turned the old talent show into an annual festival races named after the song Marcus sang that unforgettable day. It grew into one of the region's most celebrated school events, drawing performers from across the country. 3 years later, Marcus returned as a special guest at graduation. The same stage that had once been set for humiliation now welcomed him as a celebrated artist. Before performing, he shared a final reflection. "We all face moments when others try to define who we are. In those moments, we can accept their definition or respond with our own truth. And that truth, once claimed, has a power no prejudice can silence.